Do you want to do it?
Oh my god!
Says who?
It's the drama always. All right.
No. Here's the drama. Here's the drama.
I have no login to Patreon. I have no idea.
I will gladly give you the login.
I can't do it.
That's the thing. It's like
but you can't either.
I can.
Yeah, but you have all the employees, Jack.
What?
You have all the employees.
We have the same amount, and I don't have employees. I have contractors.
A contract.
So,
I like that.
So first of all, Graham likes to take on
you.
new things, right? Which is great.
Amazing.
Entrepreneurial mindset, right? That's what you do. But the thing is, as soon as he takes on any new thing, especially with regard to the iced coffee hour, it basically defaults that the responsibility is put on me. So he came up with the idea of creating a Patreon. And I said, I love the idea of the Patreon, but I already told him. I remember that one of the first things that I said, as soon as we start the Patreon, I know that the responsibility is going to be put on me. And I think that this is something that we should discuss, right? And Graham's like, oh, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And of course, the Patreon happens. Graham has not logged into the Patreon once. He hasn't gone back to anybody on the Patreon at all. I get back to every single message we've gotten on the Patreon. I'm posting every single podcast early on the Patreon. I'm asking questions for them to ask to our guests on every Patreon thing. And then one time I post it late at 8:30 p.m. the night before, right? And this is 12. They had 12 hours to ask questions to you. And sure, maybe I could have posted it earlier, but Graham didn't even think about it once. Didn't think about texting me.
The thing
hey,
is,
you should he didn't think about texting me. Hey, Jack, post on the Patreon. He doesn't remind me for any of this stuff. Basically, the responsibility automatically gets shifted over to me, and Graham sits on the side.
Okay. Our agreement.
Guys, I'll gladly take care of this for a fee.
No,
so.
Our agreement. Jack was going to handle everything in the back end, including editing. There was sponsors, scripting, everything back end. Jack was going to handle. I was going to handle the title, thumbnail, being physically here, and coordinating guests. And so, to me, everything else in the back end is the responsibility of Jack.
Right, but the back end has been handled by me. And then we add on the Patreon, which was a thing it was outside of the scope. It was outside of the scope of the stuff that we initially agreed upon.
But the thing is,
Patreon, how much money have you earned from the Patreon?
I'm fine
share it.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, we started like 3 weeks ago, and we have like $1,500 to $1,600.
Did you get a cut of
that?
Yes.
Then it's your responsibility.
Why?
Because you're the back end.
But this was outside of the scope of the initial agreement.
But it's also outside of the scope of the income too.
That
so
is
the
true,
income
Jack.
is additional.
Yeah.
I know, but we never. Okay, so if you're seeing this as one independent project, we never talked about the terms and the workload of this independent project. It just defaulted to my thing.
I feel like because you're getting paid for it, right? That it's an additional income and it's an additional work, right? If it was free and you guys had Patreon and it was another thing that wasn't an income, right? Then I would agree that maybe Graham should take a role because he's doing a very small amount, right? And you're doing a very large amount. But because there's an income added to it, right? That is using the likeness of the iced coffee hour and everything like that, it falls in line with the back end. Only because there's an income. That's my opinion.
I think Houston worded that perfectly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
My opinion. Yeah. I think that is a very strong argument. But at the same time, like I said, we agreed on some set responsibilities. Okay.
But those responsibilities were designed on the income ability of this iced coffee hour. They weren't designed on the new additional income from the future projects that the iced coffee hour brings. So like
that's also an assumption.
Well, it's an assumption that it's going to make money, yes. But if in 3 weeks you've made $1,600 and you've split that appropriately, right, then the same rules apply, you know, because it's an auxiliary option to the iced coffee hour.
But then you have to think about this like to the nth degree, right? Imagine Graham starts adding on all these other responsibilities, all these other verticals that somehow correlate back to the iced coffee hour, right? I mean, still,
but your income would scale in proportion to that.
Yeah,
I know, but at the
what
same
you would
point,
do with that, let's say there was like an enormous amount of responsibilities that the two of you agreed that you would need a third person, right? And that would cover a salary, and then that would come off the top of all of the items combined, right? So let's say the iced coffee hour made $10,000 a month, right? And you need to pay someone $1,000 to help you out with all these things. And so limit some of your responsibilities, and you both agreed to take it off the top, and then you would split after. That would make sense. So there's going to become a time where Patreon turns into like 10 other things, right? Right now, if it's at the maximum capability of your workload, then I think that you agree, you stay with this, and then this is what you tell Graham, like, hey, look, this is it. I can't add any more responsibilities than these particular items. So if we add one more thing, we need to bring on someone else.
So I think with regards to the Patreon and anything else that we add onto the podcast, realistically, something Graham and I have been talking about for a while now is that we need a producer of the podcast.
Agreed.
Basically, that handles all this stuff. So we let the host be the host, and then we let someone else basically be managing the back end and having it flush. The thing is, I'm good at it, right? Sure. I'm finding it. I've been doing it for a very long time, but I know that out there's someone that's better. And there's someone that's going to be more diligent, more structured.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
What cost, right? I mean, what would you pay your producer?
So we've talked about this.
The salary, but what do you think the salary would be?
Should we go on record to say it?
I mean, just an idea.
I'm on record. I'm on record as telling Jack, I don't think we need a producer.
Maybe not yet, but I mean, let's just say you did hire a producer. Would you pay them $5,000 a month? I mean, how much are you willing to pay them for that service?
I don't think I don't think
that's a lot of money.
I don't think it makes any sense to have a producer.
But you told me literally like a month and a half ago that you wanted it.
No, that was from one of your existing contractors who could take on some additional work to help us out.
Yeah, to step into the position of producer. And then you were also...
There's no
Graham,
like dedicated producer.
No, you also mentioned someone that has never worked in the business whatsoever before. And they just, at this time, did not have a job. And you're like, oh, we could move them into the position of producer. We could try them out for a few months. You said that to me at the gym. I remember it was a month and a half ago. They were not working
because they were willing to
umbrella.
work at a price that like... If you get a good deal,
exactly, of course,
and then it's like, well, then it just makes sense. You'll find something for them to do. But to go out of our way to find a podcast producer,
so like that's what I'm asking, right? So
yeah.
like if you took your contractor that was making, let's say, $500 right now for their work, and said, hey, can you take on this amount of responsibilities? That's going to take. We'll give them 500 more, but that 500 you can turn into 5,000 or 15,000 or some excess amount of money. You can flip that money, and their responsibilities will return you 10, 15, 20x. That makes sense. But like to hire a producer to run the show and pay them a normal salary that I would consider maybe $5,000, $8,000 between that area that they could run the show because of the size of the show. I mean, you don't have a small view count, right? You have a lot of views. And so, that producer would then respond to, the questions, the comments. It would take on your role essentially, right? And you would become more of like a Graham role, So that would be the only way I see this, transition.
At what ROI do you see it worth it? Like obviously spending, let's just say 50 grand to make 50 grand. That's not good.
No.
So
you need 10. In my book, like I don't start a new project unless I'm getting 10x, right? Like I was offered to invest in so many things in the past couple of months, and at 10% return, at 20% return, it's not worth the risk, right? So for you to take on that responsibility, hiring someone is more risky than an investment, right? Because you're taking on their livelihood, right? Unless it's a contractor and it's a very small amount of money and they understand that. But like when you're talking about taking on someone full time, this becomes their job. They have to pay their rent, they have to pay their stuff, and you're responsible for their bills, their lifestyle, right? So you have to commit to them as well as they have to commit to you. So you have to see at least 10x from that position. Like if they're paying them 5, you got to return 50. So they've got to be getting you extra sponsors, right? They've got to be reaching out to I don't know, someone that is going to bring in more money, right? So I hired a producer for my YouTube and digital business, right? And they signed a deal with a company that brought me $200,000 in ads, right, over a course of time. So I paid that person, $25,000, right, like a 12% commission for that, right? Because I got this long-term contract. So that was worth it, right? I mean, would you give me 12 grand if I gave you back 200?
Absolutely. Yeah, right.
So like, I think the same thing has to follow. Like with the Patreon right now, it's only bringing you $1,600 or $2,000, right? So that responsibility is probably going to have to lie on you. But if it starts to bring in 10, 12, 15, 20,000, then you can afford to say, look, this is auxiliary income. We didn't expect this, right? We should use this money together to add someone to help us oversee this business and grow it. That's my opinion.
I think 10x return is totally feasible.
I agree. I think
for a producer.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely feasible.
I don't see it.
What I think is that since I've been here for 3 months ago or 2 months ago, right? You've increased the podcast has gained 30% more income, but
that's
the total amount.
I mean, and it's solely that's YouTube ad revenue.
I don't know what a producer would give us.
Completely different from sponsorships, which
I don't know what a producer would give for us that we can't already do with what we're already doing.
But we aren't doing it.
What aren't we doing?
Okay, first of all, for a thing, midweeks every single week.
Sometimes we just don't have anything to talk about. That's nothing a producer would hold us to.
Well, the producer needs to tell. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The producer needs to find the content, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have to reach out to guys like myself or Alex or whoever's going to come on this show and say, look, we need to schedule Wednesday and Saturday or Wednesday and Sunday. That producer needs to fill this seat every week, twice a week. That's their job, right? They need to break down the content. They need to say, look, Houston, you're going to talk about these topics today, right? And be prepared for these topics because this is what we want to talk about, you know? And for me, just to come on here and talk, I mean, we're friends. So, you know, we have mutual respect. We have a lot in common. We can make that conversation. But when it's someone you've never met before,
someone needs to do research.
They need to know.
I would say have Andrew do it.
I don't want. Okay, so also another thing is you have to consider the workload that some of your contractors or for some other people, employees are bearing, right?
Of course.
And just to automatically add more workload in, I think is dangerous.
I think
I don't want to burn out my.
I think it'd be a great test. It tests the proof of concept, and if they like it, it's a step up. And if they don't, then or if it doesn't work, or if we're not seeing the ROI, then we lose nothing. And they get the benefit of trying it out. Sometimes you have to burn the wick at both ends to see what works.
I agree. With
if we
Graham
take
on
that.
you in my opinion, you know, when you have contractors, right? I mean, obviously, if that contractor has 10 other clients, right, you have to know that, right? You can't take a contractor that's already at 80-hour workload and be like, hey, here's 20 more, right? They're not going to perform for you, right? They're not going to perform for the other people, and then they're going to get stressed and their work's going to just be worthless. So you definitely want to get someone who can commit to you and say, look, I'm going to give you go to your contractor Andrew and say, look, Andrew, I'm going to give you 3 months, okay? I'm going to pay you this much money, and I want this result. If you can contribute to that, then we can bring you on full time and you don't have to worry about the other clients that you have. We can afford to pay you this much and you'd be solely, you know, working for us, or, you know, a balance. 50% of your income will come from us, right? So that should be, for you guys, in my personal opinion, is twice a week. Consistency is what's going to pay you, right? Consistency is what's going to get you those ads, those better views, this better everything, right? And you need diversity. Right? I mean, the iced coffee hour is amazing. You've got diversity right now. I mean, you've got some really cool people on here. But like I said, I mean, you need some people that are going to bring the view ratio. I mean, I guarantee if you look at this particular portion of the podcast and watch the view count, or, you know, watch the duration, it's going to spike.
Oh, people always love our topics.
It's great.
Like
I mean,
this,
we're talking with emotion right now, and we're talking about something interesting, but we're also solving a problem. You know, so if you can get that producer to do some research on, let's say, some person, get some background, right? Find someone with some drama. Like, what happened with this? I remember there was a guy on here that had like a bunch of drama at one time, and a lot of people were commenting negative about it, right?
Tech lead.
Yeah. Yep. I don't really know. I didn't really understand that because I don't know what happened before, but I watched it and I thought it was like interesting. But like, that producer needs to know what's happening in that person's life, what they're into, interview them first, talk about their stuff, and bring you that content so you guys can utilize that here and not just hope for the best when the camera turns on.
That I agree
100%.
Yeah.
Also, because if we do too much research on our own end, then it makes the entire conversation planned.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree. A producer would be great for that role. And also, it's the structure. It's like, I think that there are a few things that I like to think I'm at least uniquely good at. I have a competitive advantage in, right? And I think structure is like the exact opposite of what I have a competitive advantage in. And that's what a producer needs. I think that's why I really don't think that I would be good at structuring out these guests, giving out time slots, posting on Patreon at certain times. I don't have great structure.
But I think it's a 15-hour a week job. That's what I think.
In
terms of outreach and all of this.
The contractor we would pass this on to does great work. They do amazing work. And I don't want to just throw them into a spiral.
Give them an option,
because
right? That's
well, of course, I would present the opportunity to them.
But you got to commit to him. I mean, if you're going to have him do this, you got to give him 3 months and say you're guaranteed. Now, after month 1, if he sucks, you've got to deal with him for month 2. And then after month 2, if he sucks, you got to give him that 3rd month. It's going to take someone some time to get used to their role, right? They might have the skill set and not know how to utilize it yet. They might, have a bad first 2-3 weeks and get discouraged. But you guys guaranteeing them 3 months to give them the idea to figure it out is going to help him come into that role.
Yeah. I like a 3-month test. I think within 3 months, by the end of it, we should see whether or not it's working.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a really cool thing you've got going on. And I would love to see this expanded, right? I mean, just for my own personal entertainment, right? These are 91 hour and 2-hour videos that are very engaging, right? And you have the potential to take this to a very, very high level, right? That no one really has. I mean, Graham's celebrity in this industry is worth watching just to hear his opinion, right? Because obviously he does so much research. So if you can get that same back end for the other side of this, I think that'd be great.
I'm open to it. Part of it is difficult for me because I really take a lot of pride in keeping things small, and like the team is right here.
Yeah.
And so that is what I think has kept us like really grounded and connected with the
Jack too. You know, I mean, this is his business. Right?
Yes.
So you have so many other things going on.
Yeah.
You have so much other income from other places. It's unfair to both these guys, right? Because their income's coming from here.
Yeah.
Right. And so you need to obviously build it for them as well. I mean, he's putting in more work physically than you are, right? And you're getting the same benefit, if not more, you know, whatever it is, right? So at the end of the day, I think being small is cool because you have all those things, but you know, Jack has a Miata, so like
And a Lexus. Okay.
I told him buy a Lotus Elise, but didn't listen.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's good, man.
Cool.
I'm happy.
Thank you for your insights
That's
on this.
really good insight.
Yeah. So if you guys ever need anybody to mediate, you know,
I
I'm right
like
here.
this. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.